Hey everybody, welcome to Doom Hub. My name is Phizzy, and today I'm going to be talking about if Doom has what it takes to be an esport. It seems like all these developers nowadays are trying to implement esports into their game, which personally I think is great. I love watching esports, I love competing, I love that high level of competition that I think adds so much longevity and a whole new aspect to the game. But for a game to be an esport, it needs to be balanced, it needs a community that enjoys both competing and watching esports, and it needs developer support. If the developers don't want to see their game grow as an esport, then it is most likely not going to happen. So if that's the case, then it's up to a large, passionate community to push esports for the game they play. Games like League of Legends, Dota, Counter-Strike, and Call of Duty are all games that succeed very well as an esport because all these games have both community and developer support. Will Doom have a community that is interested in competing, or will it have a community full of people that just want to play the game for fun and nothing more? That question can only be answered after the launch of Doom on May 13th of this year. Now let's talk about balance. Is Doom a balanced game, and is it worthy of being an esport? From all the footage of Doom we've seen up to this point, I would say yes. Within this footage, we've seen weapons like the plasma rifle, repeater, rocket launcher, super shotgun, vortex rifle, and the static cannon, which are all options of being a weapon in your starting loadout. For the most part, from what we've seen, it looks like all these weapons are balanced pretty well. Now, starting the match with a rocket launcher sounds very overpowered and unbalanced, but this isn't your typical rocket launcher where it would normally take one rocket to kill a player. In Doom, it may take several shots with a rocket launcher to kill a player, all depending on how much shields and armor they have, which is another thing I would like to talk about. There are armor and health pickups scattered throughout the one multiplayer map we have seen so far called Heatwave. Alongside armor and health pickups, we have seen a weapon known as the Gauss Cannon and 2 power-ups available to be picked up on map. After watching the footage shown of the Gauss Cannon and its capabilities, I immediately want to say that the Gauss Cannon doesn't have any place in a competitive environment for Doom. The weapon is a one-shot kill, and it appears to be very easy to aim and accurately hit shots, but the main reason I don't see this weapon being an option in competitive Doom is because of the ability to see through walls with the weapon when you zoom in. Being able to see through walls is just giving way too much of an advantage to the team that has possession of the Gauss Cannon. The player that holds this weapon has the ability to call out the positions of all the enemy players on the other team, and not only that, but the weapon is a one-shot kill. If the Gauss Cannon did make its way into competitive Doom settings, I'd imagine matches going a little something like this. Hey guys, I got the Gauss Cannon, everybody sit back and I'll let you know where they're coming from, as the player wielding the weapon tracks the enemy players through walls and just one-shots them as they come around the corner. Now, I do understand this weapon is placed on map as a power weapon, and it's fair game for either team to obtain control of the weapon, but controlling a power weapon or a power-up should never give a team as big of an advantage as having the Gauss Cannon does. We still haven't seen a ton of Doom multiplayer footage, and who knows, the Gauss Cannon could always catch a nerf before the release of this game. Moving forward, I did mention that there are 2 power-ups placed on the map Heatwave. Now, they're not placed in 2 separate locations, they actually spawn in the same spot, but not at the same time. There is a timer that determines what time these power-ups will spawn. Now, we don't know if this is a static timer. A static timer, for example, would be if they spawned every 2 minutes on the dot. These power-up spawn times could also be random, or maybe the time the power-up is picked up or dropped has an influence on what time it will spawn next. Knowing weapon and power-up spawn times are very important if you want to compete at a high level in any arena-style first-person shooter. Anyways, when it is time for the power-up to spawn, it appears that sometimes an invisibility power-up will spawn, and other times a quad damage power-up will spawn. As far as invisibility goes, I think this is a great power-up to be featured in competitive settings for Doom. It seems like your typical invisibility power-up that makes you a lot harder to see, but you're not completely invisible, of course. I'm sure that if one team secures the invisibility power-up, that the opposite team will be able to defend against it by staying together and team shooting the invisible player as soon as he is spotted. As for the quad damage power-up, it may be pretty challenging to defend against a player who has it. Quad damage is pretty self-explanatory. Once it is picked up, you deal quadruple the amount of damage with any weapon or grenade. From footage we've seen, it seems like you can one-shot players with certain weapons when you have this power-up. Just off the top of my head, I think a great way of making this a viable power-up for competitive play would be to allow the player who picks up the quad damage only a short period of time to use the power-up before it goes away. When the player who has control of these power-ups dies, the power-up will be available for pickup at the exact location they were killed. Now, this is interesting. In other games like Halo, when a player with a power-up dies, the power-up is gone until its next respawn. My worry is that with having a power-up enabled for pickup after the player who had control of it is slayed, is that a nearby teammate could easily just pick it right back up, and that doesn't seem very fair to the other team. Even if there is a timer to allow the power-up to be picked up after the player is killed, I still don't see that as being very fair, because if the player with the power-up dies in a location of the map that his team has control of, that team has the advantage of resecuring that power-up for their team. When two teams are fighting over a power-up and one team makes a mistake which gives control of the power-up to a player on the other team, I don't think a team should continue the face effects of that mistake after the player is killed. The last item that we have seen placed on the map Heatwave that I want to go over is the Demon Rune. The Demon Rune will spawn in a random location on the map, and when a player picks up the rune, they turn into a demon that has a jetpack and the ability to shoot rockets for a limited amount of time. If a player dies as the demon, then the Demon Rune will be available for pickup at the location the player died, just like the power-ups. Except with the Demon Rune, there is a timer that counts down, and only once it reaches 0 will a player be able to pick up the Demon Rune. Like I said with the power-ups, I don't think that having a timer on the Demon Rune after a player dies makes it fair game for either team to gain control of it, because most of the time, one team will always have the advantage of gaining control over the rune depending on where the player who had control of it died. We don't know what kind of spawn timer the Demon Rune uses. It could spawn every 2 minutes, or it may just be random. The Demon Rune is another item I couldn't see being used in competitive play, mainly because it spawns in random locations of the map. So if there's a tie game and the Demon Rune just so happens to spawn where one of the teams is set up on the map, then that is giving that team a huge advantage. If the Demon Rune had set locations that it would spawn and wasn't random, then I could see this maybe being a viable pickup in a competitive setting. Two items that we do not see placed on the map are the grenade and the teleporter. These items are called equipment, and you can choose one of the two for your loadout. The grenade seems like your basic frag grenade you see in any FPS, but what I really want to talk about is the teleporter. The teleporter is a piece of equipment that you can throw out in any direction, and with the click of a button, you will teleport to the location of the piece of equipment. After using this item, a recharge will begin before you can use it again. To me, this piece of equipment would make gameplay way too crazy and chaotic, because you could literally go from one side of the map to the other in a matter of a few seconds. It could also be used to get a player out of a bad situation because of poor decision making, and personally, I think if a player makes a bad decision, that they should face the consequences of that decision. They shouldn't be able to just teleport away and get a second chance. So the teleporter is definitely going on my list of things that I think should not be in competitive Doom settings. I want to briefly touch on something called hack modules. We haven't heard much about what these are, but we do know that you earn them in-game and they give players a small advantage during a match. We also know that these are one-time use consumables, so once you activate the hack module, you cannot use it again. I can already say that I'm against this simply because I don't like random factors in any game I play. In my opinion, the less random factors the better, and more competitive the game will be. Now these may be some very small advantages, but any random factor at all has no place in a competitive game because there is always a chance a small advantage could change the whole game. And if these hack modules really are just small advantages, it's always possible that a player could turn that small advantage into something that has an effect on the outcome of the game. For example, if there is a hack module that allows you to see the player that just killed you through walls, you could easily hunt that player down and kill him because you know where he is on the map. And if that player just so happened to have a Gauss cannon when you killed him, then you just got yourself a power weapon you can get a bunch of easy kills with, all because of that small advantage. Lastly, I wanted to address the reason I think Doom has a very good chance of being an esport, and that is because a lot of the core components and features we see in Doom can also be found in games like Quake and Halo. Both Quake and Halo have been very successful games in competitive esports for years. I think Doom is a fine line between them two games. The player's movement speed in Doom is not as fast as Quake, but it's also not as slow as Halo's. In all three of these games, we see power-ups and power weapons located on the map available to be picked up. And the key to success in all these games is to control these power weapons, power-ups, and the map itself. Well, I think it's time I wrap this up. Regardless if Doom is featured as a competitive esport or not, I am still going to be enjoying every aspect of this game from campaign to multiplayer. I want to hear all of your opinions on what you think about Doom being an esport. Do you like esports? Do you think Doom has what it takes to be a competitive esport? And what about Doom are you most excited about? Well guys, that's it for this video. My name is Phizzy. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.